Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is a first for us, and we are very privileged to have Errol Gurian join us today to do a webinar on storytelling for startups. So today, Errol will just take us through some general concepts, but he has also agreed to do a three-part webinar series post this that we will send you some dates on that would be a paid for a small nominal registration, 150 Rand per session, that will go into depth about some of the concepts that he's going to introduce us to today. Errol is an international photographer and educator, and we are extremely privileged to have met him at BMW Leadership Conference this year or last year, and that he's agreed to collaborate with us in this webinar series. Thank you, Errol.
Thank you, Karine, and thank you for the wonderful introduction. It's amazing how COVID-19 and this whole situation makes things like this possible. I'm broadcasting live right now from my studio in Munich, Germany. Welcome, everyone. Very good to have you. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping at the beginning. You will be able to ask questions throughout the webinar. Please type your questions in the Q&A box, not the chat box, okay? We have Shamiz on the other side who is monitoring the Q&A box, and whatever questions you have on my presentation, please feel free to type in the question. We will make 2 stops during the 45-minute live stream, and I will answer the questions, and at the end of the live stream we'll have about 10 or 15 more minutes to answer your questions. Okay, so welcome again, and let's jump right into the topic. We'll talk about visual storytelling for startups. What is it when we talk about visual storytelling? What's the thing with photography? Why is photography so powerful and so engaging when we can write text, we can record audio, we can write stories, but still the photograph is the most powerful medium next to video, maybe, okay? So why photos? What is it about photos? The viewer reads photos multiple times faster than text, okay? And I will elaborate on this in just a second. And photos reach the viewer on an emotional level. I integrated the 3 images I wanted to show you just to illustrate the theme. The gentleman throwing up the salad bowl on the left, he's very excited as he's doing that. His name is Timothy Jensen of Jensen Design Company in Denmark. And I took this photo as an image showing the joy and the excitement of this man who loves to design things, and who loves to sell those things. Okay, so that's the photo on the left. And even without knowing who's on the image, who's on the photo, you can guess, you can feel the emotion, you can see that there's someone having fun with his product, okay? The middle one, if you look closely, you can see a silhouetted face in front of a big bonfire, and the gentleman, he's holding a glass of wine. His name is Maya. This man owns a large wine fields in Argentina. So this guy, he's all about wine and enjoying wine and you know, celebrating wine. So this shot was taken, it's a little experimental, was taken with a huge bonfire in the background, and you can see the face as a silhouette. Again, it's an image that can reach the viewer directly. It doesn't need a lot of words to explain what's going on. And of course, my personal favorites, I love to take portraits. One of my personal favorites is that image on the right side. This gentleman is restaurant owner, a former restaurant owner. Now he works as a DJ here in Munich. I like his afro and the cigarette he's holding. And again, you have an image that is engaging because not only do you have nice lighting, but also there's direct eye contact. This is something that's in a lot of photography, especially in a PR context, in an advertising context, that's important. We will talk about the power of the protagonist. The protagonist is the person that is in front of the camera, that you're basically giving a stage with your camera, okay? So that's the reason why. Readers understand and can see and emotionally understand photographs very, very quickly. So now that we know why photographs, let's look at corporate identity, okay? What is that? It's a very awkward expression, corporate identity. It's basically, it's the essence of what you do. It's the essence of your service or product. It's the heart and soul of your product or service, okay? And this essence, once you find out what it is, can be translated into visual identity, okay? So the first step of this process is finding out what really sets you apart from other companies, from other service providers, what's special about your product or service, and then look at what we call the look and feel of that product or service. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like if you're in the restaurant business? You know, those are the things that make your service, your product unique, okay? And once you understand those qualities, then you can move on to photography. And in photography, of course, one of the things you use as an ongoing theme might be the colors that you use in your photographs, okay? So I'm using, for example, a bright orange that can be found in the Ziba logo, if you know it, okay? So that's the brand identity. That's the brand identity that needs to be developed, okay? So that would be the next step, basically, after knowing why photography is so powerful. So now the question becomes, how do you go about translating your corporate identity into images? How can you make photographs and visualize what you have to offer, what service you have to offer, what product you have to offer? How do you translate that into powerful images? And before we do that, we need to understand, what does it mean when we talk about PR photography? What's good PR photography? How can you use photography in a public relations context? This will be the next slide that I'm showing. And good photography, a lot of times, is a mix of journalistic, advertising, and artistic visual language. Sounds a little complicated, but it's not. And I will show you what I mean by that. I think it's very important, if you want to use powerful photography in your visual storytelling with your company, with your services, you have to understand where that is coming from. And let me show you some examples of, or one example of good journalistic photography. When we talk about photojournalism, when we talk about good journalistic photography, one of the magazines that comes to mind, of course, is National Geographic. These guys, for over 100 years, have published excellent photography, and basically are the top magazine, or now a website, that uses photography for storytelling. But this is journalism. Okay, look at that photo of the burning of a field there in Scotland, I believe. It was a photo that was not staged. Okay, we talk about documentary photography that show what is. That's the tradition of journalism. whenever we talk about journalism and photojournalism, we show what is. That means that I will not be able to stage this event. I will not be able to go ahead and burn a field and just send someone in the picture. No, the photographer has to know when something is happening. He has to do the planning, he has to do the research, and then go to shoot the photo. This is journalism. This is not what we're about to do, but we're taking from this. We're taking a lot from this when we're talking about PR. But we're not only taking from journalism, we're also taking from advertising photography. Now, advertising almost is diametrically opposed to journalism. Why? Because now you're not talking about what is, but you're basically talking about you're creating a perfect world. That's what advertising is, okay? When you look at advertising photography, all you see is beautiful people, beautiful smiles, beautiful places, amazing ambiance, okay? It's a dream world. It's a perfect world that you're showing. And so this image of a boy chewing a certain kind of candy, I'm not even sure if you have it in South Africa, Nimm zwei, it's called, take two. It's like, okay, it has this amazing taste and it goes plop, yeah? And so the boy is looking at the camera, he's a cute boy, the lighting is perfect, the shirt is like, it's his Sunday best, okay? And so it's a world we're creating, it's very artificial. This is advertising photography. You can understand advertising photography as being diametrically opposed to journalism. It's basically, it's on the other side. And then there is a third form I think is interesting, and this is artistic photography. When you go to visit an art gallery, when you look at a catalog, a museum catalog, and you're browsing and paging through a book and a catalog, what you see is artistic photographs. A lot of times, artistic photography is not what is, and it's also not the perfect world, but what it is, it's a lot of time, it's ambivalent. It's a lot of times, artistic photography are images that we look at and we don't really understand the first second. We look at it maybe twice, maybe a third time, and then you understand, oh, now I see, now I understand. It keeps me engaged as a viewer. This is not a good idea for advertising. Imagine driving by a huge billboard, okay, next to the highway and seeing something that you can't make sense of. It's not a good idea. Advertising photography has to speak to you very quickly, very directly. So does journalism. When you're paging through a newspaper, when you're scrolling through a website, it's very hard to engage you as a viewer with a photo that you don't understand from the get-go, okay? So this is artistic photography. Again, it's different. You have journalism, you have advertising, and then you have artistic photography. In my opinion, PR, and this is what I'm teaching in my courses, in my webinar, PR is a very good mixture of all three, and I will tell you why. We're taking a little bit from journalism. So a lot of times in PR, we're faking a situation that is not real, but looks real, okay? So the not real is the advertising part. This image, it's from a campaign I shot for Intel computers. This was for the HR department that is basically luring new candidates to the company. And we wanted to show four colleagues in discussion in the restaurant or the cafeteria of Intel, and we did quite a big casting where we looked at a lot of people, a lot of employees who would, you know, who we could use as protagonists, as models. We decided on a very clear color coding as far as the clothes are concerned. We used blue a lot and some other colors. And then we set up a situation that it doesn't really look staged. It looks like the camera is watching these four guys in interaction. It's a candid moment. And so it's a mix, okay? And maybe if you can see on the very right of the image, on the right edge and on the bottom edge, there is some soft focus in the foreground. You can't really see what's going on, but it gives the image some interesting depth of field, okay? So maybe that's borrowing a little bit from the artistic school of photography. So there you have it. It's a combination. So whenever you're using photography, whenever you're taking your own photos for your visual communication measures, try to think of PR photography as a mixture of journalism, advertising, and art photography. Sometimes a single image is not enough to tell a story, okay? Sometimes just think of in an event, for example. This is what comes to mind spontaneously. When you photograph an event, it's a good idea to concentrate on a few topics, okay? So action is something that we photographers look for. Whenever I photograph an event, a concert, a talk, a conference, whatever, I'm looking for action. And not only action, I'm looking for interaction between people. This is what's interesting for the photographer's eye. You watch people interacting with each other. That's something that draws the viewer, okay? So it's action, it's action. Then you have emotion. Whenever you have someone hopefully not crying, but laughing, okay, smiling, enjoying the moment, you have emotion in your photograph. The viewer will relate to this, okay? So whenever I'm photographing a photo story, I'm looking for those moments. I'm looking for those moments. And most of the time, ideally, they're not staged, but I watch and I wait for the moment to occur, and then I take my picture. Okay, so emotion is another one when you want to tell a good photo story. There is a phenomenon we call the story arc. What it is, it's basically the beginning, middle, and end of a story. Whenever you shoot a story, an event, anything, a day in the life of, think of it a little bit like a documentary movie with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, this is a technique we have been using in journalism forever, and you can find it nowadays on Netflix. Whenever you watch a movie, it has a good beginning, a strong middle, and a powerful ending, or a cliffhanger, they call it today. So this is what you're looking for when you're taking several photos in a photo story. Then context is important. When you're taking photos of people, being in a place, acting in a place, interacting in a certain place, you're giving context. And that means I don't go very close with the camera just to show a face, but I'm moving back a little bit so I can ideally give the viewer the context, what's behind the protagonist, what's next to the protagonist, so the viewer understands what's going on, and the viewer understands where the protagonist is. And then I basically gave the answer to the last topic, the protagonist. I call it the power of the protagonist. Whenever I shoot photos at events, and you should too, try to look for the friendly faces. Try to not focus too much on the ugliest people. Look at the ones who know how to smile, who clap their hands at the presentation, who interact in a friendly way. I call it my spontaneous casting. Okay, whenever I do something like that, whenever I shoot an event, the first thing I do is I'm looking for people who might be photogenic. Who are the ones who look friendly? Who are the ones who are smiling? Who are the ones who are interacting, okay? So that's basically a good foundation for a good photo story. And to finish the photo story, I will give you a little more material when shooting an event, for example, that you can shoot in several pictures. You have different shot sizes that you can use. A lot of times photographers forget that. We have the long shot, which is basically what we call the image that tells the story where something is going on. I've included 3 images from a concert a while ago, a classical concert here in Munich. And on the top image, the image on the top, you can see the stage with all the musicians and the lighting and the stage and all that, the conductor in the middle. It's called the long shot. There is another word for it called establishing shot. So whenever you photograph a series of photos to tell a story, don't forget to give the viewer an idea of where she or he is. The next one is called, and this is the middle photo, it's called the medium shot. The medium shot is where the camera moves in a little bit closer, okay? So in this case, the protagonist, the conductor, is in the middle of the scene, but you can see a little bit to the left and the right. You can see the musicians, you can see the notes on the bottom of the photograph, but you're moving in. This is called the medium shot. You're not showing the overall situation, but now you're moving into the situation. And then we have the detail shot, okay? Whenever the camera moves in very, very closely, this is the detail when you focus on someone's face or in someone's eye, or in my case, I'm focusing on the hands of the conductor who is very sensitively conducting his orchestra, okay? So don't forget, you have these 3 choices, and it's a good idea to use all 3 when you're taking pictures. The nice thing about shot sizes is that you can even use your smartphone to do that, okay? You don't use the smartphone zoom. This is a different topic. Smartphone zooms are not so good. It's better to use your legs to move in closer, move in, move away, to give the viewer more variety. This is what we call storytelling. And then, of course, and again, this is something you can use, you can do with your smartphone camera, you can do it with your big DSLR, your Nikon, your Canon, but it's very simple. Try to think of and try to remember that you have 3 angles. We have 3 angles. We have the bird's eye. We love to take our smartphone photos, food photos from the top, looking down, okay? You should do that with all other photography. You should always think of, how can I give variety to my story? How can I give variety to my photography by maybe stepping on a chair or stepping on a table? A lot of times that's enough. It gives the viewer some variety. It gives a new insight, okay? And then you're all familiar with the worm's eye. Sometimes it's a good idea to move back a little and have the camera on the bottom, on the floor, and shooting up, okay? This is the worm's eye view. Again, you're giving the viewer a little gift, you're giving them a little surprise. It's a different view, and it's something that is appreciated by the viewer. And then the most popular, let's call it, the most popular angle, we all do it all the time, is we shoot from eye level. This is easy, okay? Most of the time, we're shooting from eye level, and it's okay to do that, but if that's all you have, it might get a little boring, okay? So try to use the different 3 camera angles: bird's eye, worm's eye, and eye level. Before I move on to the 4-pillar rule of photo composition, let me ask my team in Johannesburg if we have any questions so far, and I'll get a drink. I use the time to get a drink of water.
Hi, does anybody have questions? Please pop it in the Q&A box at the bottom of the of your screen, and I will read them out to Errol for you.
I'm not seeing any questions yet, Errol.
Okay, very good, very good.
Just to confirm, Errol, we are in Cape Town, not Joburg.
Oh my God! How can
I think it's important to remember that.
Not all of us.
Down there somewhere. Down there somewhere. Yeah.
Karine is in Joburg.
Karine is in Joburg.
I know. I know. I haven't. No worries. I've been to the campus in Joburg. I've seen the brand new Ziba offices in Joburg. I haven't seen your beautiful campus in Cape Town, but hopefully after COVID, that's one of the places I'll visit.
Good.
Okay, well, thank you. So far, we've discussed quite, some topics on visual communication. Let me continue to give you a little more in-depth material, and I will tell you about my 4-pillar rule of photo composition.
Sorry.
Yes.
Before you move on, we do have one question that came in.
Yes, please.
Okay, so the question is from Sindile, and he's asking, for small businesses and for people without photography knowledge, do these methods apply to someone using a basic smartphone?
Absolutely, it does, because the rules even the 4-pillar rule that I'll be showing you can be done very well with a smartphone. It doesn't have to be the iPhone, just a basic good camera. And let's say if your camera isn't older than, let's say, 4 or 5 years, then you're using a machine that's pretty good. So yes, and the seminar that we're giving as the extension of this live stream will focus on photography that you can do yourself. We know that we're addressing small businesses. We know that we're addressing entrepreneurs on a shoelace budget, and so the techniques we're teaching and the strategies we're teaching, they can be applied to your smartphone. Yes, thanks for the question. Keep asking. Okay, so what's the 4-pillar rule of photo composition? Let me first talk about visual weight. When we talk about good photography in a PR context, when we talk about good visual storytelling, most photographs will concentrate like this. One of the 2 schoolgirls running away from the camera, they will concentrate on 1 or 2 elements in a photograph, okay? This is what I call visual weight. It's not a good idea to make photos with a lot of many small things that can't be seen and that can't be read by the viewer, okay? Remember that the viewer will not spend a lot of time looking at a photo. So in this photo, for example, we have the 2 girls who are the visual weight. We don't have 20 of them, just 2 of them, and that's exactly right for this photo. So that's the first pillar that I was talking about. Then the second one is, some of you are familiar with the term rule of thirds, I believe. The rule of thirds is saying that whenever you take a photograph, it's a good idea to pose your protagonist or your main subject not in the middle of the photo, but a little bit off to the side, okay? And we used to say, in the early days of digital photography, we used to say that the ratio should be 2/3 to 1/3. I would go a step further to say that it doesn't have to be 2/3 and 1/3. It's enough to have asymmetrical photos, okay? So in this image, the gentleman is not right in the middle, but a little bit off to the right, okay? He could be a little bit off to the left. It gives the photo a little more drive. It gives a little more dynamic to your photographs, okay? But be careful when you use these techniques that you always think about social media when you take your pictures. So think about different formats, and this is one of the topics we will be talking about in the webinar. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have TikTok, YouTube, and others, and each format is asking for their own, unfortunately, asking for their own size. So when you shoot asymmetrical, don't overdo it. Try to be somewhat liberal. Then the next pillar, this is pillar number 3, I call layers. This is one thing, this is the only one thing I believe that is not very easy to shoot with a smartphone. You need an app for this because a lot of times most smartphones, except the latest ones, say the iPhone 11 for example, most smartphones will not give you the opportunity to shoot in layers. This is what you see in this image. If you look very closely, you can see the focus is on the gentleman in the middle. There's a gentleman in front who is out of focus, and there's a lady in the back who is out of focus. And so what we're doing here is we're working with layers, and the 3 layers, the foreground, the middle ground, and the background, give the photo depth, okay? Again, we're giving the viewer something interesting to look at. We're giving depth, okay? Those of you who use mirrorless or professional cameras know how to do this by using a long lens, by using a wide aperture. With a smartphone, it's not so easy. With a smartphone, you have to use an app that I will introduce in a second. And this is the 4th pillar, the last pillar that I will be talking about, and I call it focus on essentials. So whenever you're shooting a photo, you have to really think about what you want to say in that photo, what you want to communicate in that image. And so whenever you take a photo, you have to decide what should be inside the frame or outside the frame. A lot of times it helps to get closer to the subject and leave out things that are not important, that are not relevant, okay? Like the interaction you can see here with the hands. So moving in, focusing on those things that are essential and leaving out the unessential is very, very important. Take this as the only one information. If you leave us in a half hour, please remember this one. Focus on the essentials. Very important. Okay. So now, whenever you show people in your photography, and people like to look at people, so it's a good idea to have the protagonists, to have people that are friendly, that know how to smile. And I wrote that when you show people that best represent your corporate visual identity, okay, pick the ones who are in the right age for whatever you offer, that have the right gender for whatever you offer, the right ethnicity, the right personality, maybe even the right body shape, okay? So this is what we call casting in professional photography. We look at who to show, who to photograph very hard, okay? And it's a process in professional photography that we do beforehand a shooting, and you can do the same. It doesn't matter if you're shooting with a Nikon or professional Canon camera with a big lens or just your smartphone. This is something you can do beforehand. Look very closely who you want to show, okay? And I say opt for the friendly faces. Whenever I shoot PR, even advertising, even sometimes journalism, I try to look for the ones who are friendly, who are open, who are photogenic, okay? Most of the time you will find these people. Sometimes it'll be a little harder, but those are the ones who will be able to transport your message very, much more effectively, okay? So look for the ones who look friendly. All right, so now here you have it, your smartphone camera as a storytelling tool. Someone answered, can I use, your materials? Can I use this webinar if I only use, if I only shoot on a shoestring? All I have is a smartphone. And yes, you can use your camera as a storytelling tool. I will tell you how to do it. First of all, there are free tools. I'd like to, 3 free tools that I'd like to introduce to you. There is one that runs on your iOS or Android phone. It's called Snapseed. Snapseed is a professional grade photo editing app. It's free, and with that app, you can really improve the look of your photos. You can change exposure, you can make your photos brighter or darker, you can adjust the colors, and you can even do what we just saw in that one example before the last. You can even give depth to your photos. You can use layers by using a special tool that is included in Snapseed. This is one of the apps that we will be discussing in depth in our webinar. Okay. Then there's another one, a very powerful tool. It's called Adobe Bridge. This is a photo browser app, and it will run on Windows and Mac on your stationary computer. It will run on your laptop or your stationary machine. This one allows you to select and rate huge amounts of photos, okay? Whenever we talk about good storytelling and whenever we talk about professional photography, we're usually talking about a lot of images. And so this app, this program, Adobe Bridge, will allow you to go through a large number of photos very quickly and rate them and sort them, okay? So this one is a free program. All you have to do is give your start your Adobe ID, which is free, and then you can go ahead and use it. And then another one which runs on your iOS or Android phone, it's called Adobe Lightroom, and this is really, it's a very hot contender, this program, because this allows you to not only take pictures, professional grade pictures with your smartphone, but also to do the work that Bridge usually does. You can rate your photos, you can make collections of photos, you can upload, you can share. It's an incredibly powerful tool. For those of you who know what a RAW file is, you can shoot on your smartphone. If it's one of the latest models, you can shoot in a RAW mode and process the raw images, which gives you the power to really use all the power your camera has, your smartphone camera has. This one is free to use. Again, it's an Adobe product. I'm not an employee. I'm not trying to sell you anything that's Adobe, but I'm a huge fan of this. And so with this one, you can try it for free on your phone. They have a desktop version, and they have an iPad version, which I think you have to pay on a monthly basis. Okay, so these are the free tools that I would like you to have a look at if you're interested. All free, very powerful. These will be topics in our webinar. If you want to join, we'll discuss the three, and we'll give you free resources on how to use them. Okay, so let me show you some examples that came in. We basically tried to find some images that we could use from the Ziba context. These images are some of the photos that have reached us. This is good smartphone photography, folks. You can see in the upper image a gentleman in an athletic shoe store with, I believe it's a basketball he's holding under his arm, and he's gesturing. And look at the beautiful perspective. You can see the depth of the room. There's beautiful lighting. And it's a photo that tells a story. It tells the story of this store and the guy in the store. Especially I like the one in the middle. It's a shoemaker, okay? This guy, he's an amazing personality. I saw the picture and said, oh my God, you know, I'd like to, bring my shoes and have them fixed by this man. He looks really, really friendly. Again, the power of the protagonist, okay? And the photo is showing context. It's giving the viewer context. It shows us where this man is working, what his tools look like, the shoes in the background, and it's a photo that tells a story. And so does the last one on the bottom. We see the inside of a small cash store, and the image shows a large selection of things that we can identify. It could be taken a little bit closer. Maybe, you know, those things that you can see are a little small. I have to look closely to see what exactly. There's some fruit in the foreground, some boxes in the background, but still it gives variety, okay? It tells the story of this store. So, and these have been taken with smartphones without any of the techniques that I just mentioned. Imagine how much you could improve this by using the stuff we're giving you here. Okay, so now what are your next steps? What can you do to improve your photography in a visual storytelling context, be it a small one-man operation with a shoestring budget, be it a medium-sized corporation with a few employees, whatever. Show us your pics. If you want, please send us photos. We will give you the email address to send them to. We'll be happy to have a look. This will not be an in-depth consultation, but we will give you hints. We will give you tips on how to improve. And maybe if you're up to it, you would like to enroll in our webinar on visual storytelling for startups. This will be a 3-session webinar, 3 45-minute courses, lectures online like we're doing them right now. It will be interactive, so you will have the chance to ask questions and get them answered. And we will also have a small library of video tutorials that will explain, for example, how you work with the app called Snapseed, how Adobe Bridge works, how you can use Adobe Lightroom and other things. You will be able to access those videos. They will be 3 to 5 minutes long, very easy to understand, and you can always basically have them in your pocket because they will probably be on most likely be on a YouTube channel that you can access from everywhere. So this is it, and I hope you could use a little bit of what I told you in my little introductory webinar. We'd like to see you in the next few webinars. In the next few weeks, we'll be posting the dates for this. And I would like to open the platform for questions if you have them. Now is your chance to ask. This is still free, guys. So use the opportunity and ask away. Okay, Shamiz, do you have any questions?
Yes, we have 2 questions so far. Please keep them coming in, everybody. So the first question is from Dr. Rudy Kimi, who is the CEO of the business school at Tsiba Business School, and he's asking, what is your perspective on photoshopping versus natural photography?
My personal, okay, hi Rudy, good to have you. My personal opinion is that a good photograph, and this is my personal opinion, and remember, my background is in journalism, okay? So my opinion is that a good photograph doesn't need a lot of Photoshop, okay? There is a little tweak here and a little correction that you do there. We would maybe optimize the exposure, the brightness of the photo. Maybe you tweak a little bit the colors. But I think for me, the photographic process is in taking the picture. And not only that, but before taking a picture, developing an idea for a visual, context, and then translating that idea into an image. That's what photography is to me. I know that the process is changing, and now that photo editing has become so readily available in the palm of your hand with your smartphone, a lot of people use it. My opinion is that a lot of photo editing is a little bit of show off and adding an effect, okay, that maybe for the first quarter of a second will wow you, but then when you look closely, it's like, okay, why is this picture, why does this have red stars in it or white stars? I don't understand. Just because I can do it doesn't mean that I have to do it. So this is my take on photo editing and improving your photographs with software. I think where it's necessary, yes, but I think do it sparingly and invest in a good idea and invest in a good translation. So the photography process, to me personally, is more important than the processing. Yeah, so that's my take, and so yeah, please, any more questions, Shamiz?
We have Yasmina. Yasmina is asking, will the free tools incorporate designer/developer watermarks?
Thank you for this remark. I'm very happy to do that. Please feel free to, should you apply or should you send us a message, please write that in your email. I'll be happy to include watermarks. For those of you who are not sure what we're talking about, these are most of the time little logos or maybe the name of the photographer and or the company who owns the copyright to the images, and you can include that as a watermark in the photograph, either on the bottom right or in the image as a large, maybe semi-transparent logo. The idea of the watermark is that you can see the photograph, but you might not be able to reuse it, or you might not be able to reuse it without knowingly cutting out the watermark. So it's a way to make sure that people don't use your photograph that have not paid for usage rights. Thank you for the question, and please remind us, we'll include that in the webinar.